In this episode of our Duct Tape Garage drag car build, we finally start engine assembly. We get the rings set, the crank checked, and the first piston going in, until disaster strikes. We end up at the machine shop, come back with new parts, and now the 327 might actually be a 350. Will we get it together in time for No Name Nationals? Stick around to find out. Alright, so I am ready to gap my rings. I have the pistons numbered for which one goes where. I'm gonna go ahead and start by putting the oil rings in all these pistons, and then I will start by doing the rest of the rings. I threw one of the second rings in the board just to see where it's at without filing, and it's a 0.022, so that's good. Might not have to do too much filing on these. I might have to clean some of these out a little bit more. There's one ring. Now we just need to do the top. It's a slow process. I'm making sure to clean out these oil grooves. So once I get all these ringed, we can move on to the next thing and hopefully get this engine put together soon so we can get it in the car. We are weeks from No Name Nationals. I'm really looking forward to it, and the car might not look pretty when we get there, but hopefully this engine's running. Well, if something looks different, that's because there are bearings in these main journals. I went ahead and set them in place, and I'm gonna lay the crank in and then plastic gauge it to see what the bearing clearances are. Hopefully everything's good. We can torque it down and move on to the piston and rods. All right, I have the crankshaft in. I went ahead and ripped some plastic gauge apart into the proper lengths. Well, I screwed that piece up. I can't pick it up. Pick up. There we go. I'm just gonna reuse these old bolts for torquing purposes for this plastic gauge, but I do have replacement bolts. This is a little overkill for this, but maybe it's not coming. Come out! There we go. All right, I'm gonna go grab the torque wrench and get the specs, torque them down, and we'll read our gauge and see how much clearance we have. Run these in with the impact just until they touch, and use this torque wrench. We'll torque them to 70 and then check everything. Okay, those are torqued. Back them all off. That's a 3/1000. I'm pleased with that. That looks like it's about 2.5 And last but not least, this is the one that's a pain to get off. And we're looking at, that's metric, 3/1000. I'm gonna call that good to go. I'm gonna clean these off, oil, torque them down. We can move on to the rods. The worst part about this is cleaning the plastic gauge off. They should make it like oil based so it just dissolves and you can just pull everything on with it in there. Nice and clean like it was never even there. A couple drops of assembly lube. Since the crank's lubed up, I'm gonna go ahead and pick it up and rotate it so I can get it lubed side down and stick it back in. Now I can lube the top side. I almost forgot the other side of my crank seal. Where'd I put it? I'm gonna put just a dab of my favorite sealant on the edge of these two-piece crank seals. When I say a dab, I mean just a touch. All right, now, next is, the number got rinsed off, but I think, what order did I go in? 2, 3, okay. This is the next one. All right, I got my new bolts. These have a smaller head. It's like there's hardly any threads with this washer on here. It's only sticking up like 3/16 of an inch. All right, so it looks like these bolts are for a different engine. So I'm gonna rip these out. I'm gonna put my originals back in, torque them down, and at least I can get the rods put on, and then think about if I want to do anything with these. Well, this is smooth and I'm happy with it. I ended up having to use my old bolts, torqued them to 65 foot-pounds, 3 stages of torque, increasing each time. And I might change these out. I'm gonna mess around with the rods and see if I can order the correct ARP bolts for the mains. It won't be hard to swap them out as long as I still have the bottom end apart. So we might go that route here later on. All right, now I think I'm ready to drop the pistons in. I had this old ring compressor that I've probably had for 20 years. I just couldn't get the pistons to go in with this. And so I thought, I'll buy a new one. I had to go to the parts store anyway. So I picked up this same style. It was all they had. I wanted a different style, but I thought, well, maybe it's just mine. I'll try a different one. Did the same thing. So I got one of these set bores. You order it with your bore, and it actually fits in the bore very nicely. It was 30 bucks, something like that, 30, 40 bucks on Amazon. And I already tried it out. I popped it in and popped it back out, and it works a lot better. So let's pop some of these in. I'm gonna do these 4 first, but I need to check my rod bearing clearances. So we'll probably take it a little bit slow. All right, well, this isn't good. The piston skirt broke off in my hand. Since I had a little issue with my piston, I decided to take this bottom end back apart. I saw a scratch on this piston rod, so I decided to just take the whole crank out. I decided to polish it the old school method with shoestring. So I got the correct bolts for the crank. Now I'm just putting it back in. I loaded up my pistons and rods. I'm gonna take those over to the machine shop to see if they can match me up with a piston or what I'm gonna need to do there. I figured I'll just take it all. If they can get me a piston and it needs balanced, then we'll just have everything there. I'm just gonna put this together. Then I'm going to bed because I gotta get up early and head over to the machine shop before I go to work. All right, I just got back from the machine shop. I had them put the new rods on my pistons. I guess put the new pistons on the rods, recondition the rods, and I just went to grab this box out of the van. I noticed it has 350 written on the box. I want to measure this new piston to see if it's the same as my old one. Hopefully it is, so I can get this engine put together this weekend. Let me turn the camera around. All right, here's my old piston, here's my new, and according to Google, 0.11 is the wrist pin difference. The old piston's 1.22 from the wrist pin to the top of the piston. New piston is, let me get this at an angle I can say. 1.103, meaning this new piston's gonna be lower in the hole and probably give me like 5-to-1 compression. So these aren't the right pistons. That's very unfortunate. I kind of had him rush these. I'm being a pain in the butt right now for him. So it's Friday, they're closed. I'll have to return them first thing Monday morning. All right, I just left the machine shop. So the guy says he can't return the pistons, and it sounds like he doesn't want to really do anything about it. So he's gonna look through his parts that he has to see if he can find a crankshaft for a 350 laying around. Then he's gonna see what price he can get me versus a new 350 crankshaft or a 327 set of pistons. So then we can weigh the options and go from there, see how much of that cost he's gonna eat, if any, and figure out what to do. So the 327 build may end up being a 350 build. So we'll just have to wait for the phone to ring and see what we end up doing. It looks like this 327 build may actually turn into a 350. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, and see if we can make it to No Name National.